That's the way.
We're wanted men.
Episode 124 of the Smugglers Galaxy podcast. We're actually doing something a little different today. Me and Jason are face to face because my house is in general disarray because we finally got the reno going. So I decided to come over to Jason's house. Or actually, it was decided that I was going to come over to Jason's house, bring my computer, and we'll see how this turns out. Jason, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. Just trying to get used to this new dynamic of recording in person and not on the computer, but
yeah, we'll be fine. It'll be fun.
I got tons to talk about on this episode. I'm looking forward to this one all week.
Awesome. How's your week been?
It's good. I got a bunch of stuff. I got the R2-D2 the vintage collection with the sensor scope without the actual sensor scope.
Oh, interesting.
It's the little. It's like the eye that pops out of his head. From Dagobah. It's not the sensor scope, which is like a radar dish. So it's weird that it says with sensor scope and it's without the sensor scope. I guess it's a small complaint. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got the TVC vintage prototype. What is it? The retro collection prototype Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I see that.
So that came. I got the Asajj Ventress Micro Galaxy Squadron ship for $4 at Target.
Yeah.
I couldn't pass that up. And then yesterday I got this Black Series. I forgot I pre-ordered this Boba Fett Tython. I guess it's Dad Bod Boba Fett when he's been re-armored. So it's his armor. And there's a lot of good paint application, which is probably why this is a deluxe figure. But it's also got cracking on the side. It's like it came in a padded envelope and it got cracked.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, when you were showing that to me earlier, I thought you'd found that at Walmart or Target, not that you had it shipped in.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah, I passed that up at Target for like $10. I'm kind of kicking myself, but
I think this is the Walmart one.
Is it? They had one at Target too, or
I think the Target one is from his show, and this one is from The Mandalorian.
Oh, it does. I think
as far as the packaging goes, I don't know if there's much difference between the two.
I think his legs, he might have like armor on his legs, but I don't know. I don't do Black Series anymore, and I didn't want to go back down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, like I said, I forgot I pre-ordered this, and it's here, so I'm keeping it.
Yay! So, yeah, dude, my week's just been a cluster because they started on my reno, I guess, last Monday, and we've been living between my in-laws' house and a camper in my driveway and my house. So I've been feeling like a nomad for the past week. But I did pick up, Target was at, and I'm so used to staring at my computer screen now that I can look at you and I'm like, no, Jason's right in front of me. But anyway, I picked up the retro Ben Kenobi, and I picked up the retro Reva. Guess how much? For both of them.
Both of them together?
Yes.
Probably on clearance. I'll say $8 together.
$4
each.
Yeah, they were like $7 with tax.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
not a bad one.
I didn't really. We need them, but for $7 for the pair, it goes with my other stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got rid of my land speeder because it was just in the way. And it was one of those where I have a camera set up in my collection room, and every time somebody walked into my house to work on it, they would look at that land speeder and just shake their head. Plus, my grandson was looking at me going, dude, Wampa, I'm too big for this now. So it was time to get rid of it. So we took it up to Retro Shop in Canton. And I think that's... Oh, and I got Has No Talent did a custom Wampa that was based off of the Macquarie concept art, and I got that thing. He shipped it out like Thursday night, and I got it yesterday or Monday. Oh, today's Monday. I got it Saturday.
Wow, that's a pretty fast turnaround.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool looking, and it has had a couple of skeletons with it.
It looks weird because it's so thin.
Yes,
it's not bulky at all.
No.
The figure looks great. That don't mean the figure looks weird. The character looks weird.
Yeah, it's a weird concept.
Like that.
I couldn't pass it up because he makes good stuff, and I've got a couple of other of his. Like he did some mini 3 3/4 like small wampas, mini wampas. So to add to that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was watching. Oh, my daughter was binge watching Law and Order this week, and I walk into the room, and Adam Driver was the villain of that episode.
Oh my God!
Which was weird to see him on Law and Order, and his name was Jason, so that was even more weird.
That's what he should have been named in Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess so, Jason Solo. But
yeah.
But yeah, it was just, Jason, you can't do that. And then he's yelling, and it's just like, what is going on? What did I just walk into? Because my brain is a little scattered right now as to why Kylo Ren is being yelled at as Jason. Because it was kind of the same way he was acting. Like, he was that angry, loud villain.
Right.
So it was kind of like the same character from the sequel trilogy. I don't know.
Anyway. Awesome. Yeah. And, yeah, nothing too exciting. I played a show. My band Thrum had a show Saturday night, so that's been nice to knock the rust off after like 3 or 4 years of not playing shows. So that was fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and it's nice to have a 3-day weekend to recover from that.
Was it a one-shot, or are you going to do more?
We're going to do more. We've got one scheduled middle of next month at the Masquerade.
Okay.
In February.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to, like I need another hobby between this and a club and a band and work. It's like I got 3 part-time jobs. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is, but it's fun.
I didn't realize that Spotify allows people to make comments about the show.
Okay.
And Lewis has been saying, great show, great episode. So thank you, Lewis.
Yes,
I didn't realize that. And it's not that we were ignoring your comments. We just didn't realize that in Spotify you can post Q&A. And I guess it was just like an open comment thing for each episode. And he was in there doing that.
Yeah.
And then thank you to Anthony C. 1970 for the review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate your support. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Yeah, also Spotify, you can do web live or video podcast on it, but I think YouTube's the way to go. I don't know. You are more of the nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff, so you know what's better.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
No. YouTube is great for commenting.
You're right. Hi, YouTube.
I'm recording this with my phone. We're going to post it in YouTube later.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I got a bunch of news, a bunch of just crap that I've been forgetting to talk about, so I'll just go through that real quick.
Yeah.
The new Micro Galaxy Squadron LAAT, which is the Grand Army of the Republic. What do they call this? LAT, but what does LAT stand for? I don't remember.
According to Ted of the Smugglers, of the Force of Course podcast, it's like low altitude armor transport.
Okay. Well, these are just starting to hit target. There's 4 of them. Plo's Bros, which is Plo Koon, with 2 clone troopers on the side. Crumb Bomber with Salacious Crumb holding a bomb he's about to drop. Separatist Nightmare, which is a green version of the ship, and the Coruscant Guard gunship, which is a maroon colored one. These are selling for $60 to $100 already on eBay.
Jesus.
I saw $100 on Macari.
That's crazy. And of course I know which one you had to grab first.
Salacious Crumb.
Yes. That is, let me look at that. I've seen them in the store, but I haven't, I didn't pay attention because it was late, and I was just like, okay, Jason has these, I'm going to go on.
And Plo's Bros, which is another cool one. The weird thing about these, and this is all anecdotal, it seems like the 2 that I have, Plo's Bros and the Crumb Bomber, are being found on this side of the Mississippi, so the East Coast, and the other 2 are predominantly being found on the West Coast. So it's almost like, and I've seen like in Minnesota, there's some in Minnesota, so it seems like legit the Mississippi River is where the line is between the 2 different kinds. So the only ones I've been able to find in the store here are these 2. When you go into the Micro Galaxy Squadron Facebook group, they're kind of saying the same thing. So it's just weird that the Mississippi River seems to be separating the 2. But these weren't supposed to arrive until the end of January, so I would assume by the end of the month they're going to be everywhere.
Yeah, and the only other complaint I have is look at the guns on the speeder bike. I've seen.
They're backwards?
They're backwards.
I'm sure you can just pop out and put them back.
Yeah, but these are cool looking ships. I'm waiting for the. They did announce that it's the Rancor. Everybody thinks it's the Tiger Shark, but it's a Rancor actually. Excuse me. I don't know when it's coming out, but they did announce it, so I don't know what the particulars are about it. If it's going to be a normal release or like an ultra rare Comic-Con exclusive, but yeah. I was speaking of Comic-Cons, I was kind of upset because the Back to the Future cast is going to be in Portland, so it's like Marty McFly, it's Doc, Lorraine, and Biff. All those guys are going to be up in Portland, and I was like, Mandy was like ready to book a trip, and we have a buddy that lives up there, and she messaged him and was like, hey, can Glenn crash on your couch? And he has family in town, so he couldn't do it. And then he was like, don't waste your time on that con because it's canceled the last few years, and so I'm going to wait and see if there's another con closer. But yeah,
is it canceled because of COVID?
I think so.
Okay,
but I don't know.
Things are starting to go back to normal, so I would assume we'd be hosting cons like that.
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, Saturday night was great. We had a bunch of people out there, so it does feel like we're over the hump as far as COVID goes, which is awesome.
I've seen on social media a bunch of face characters. I say a bunch. It's about 2 or 3 are leaving the Star Cruiser.
Really?
Yeah, it was on TikTok, and they both kind of appeared independently. And it was the way they presented it. The 2 that I saw, and I heard that there's more out there. It was almost scripted. Like, I had a great time. It was the most challenging, but it's just time to leave. And they both kind of said the same thing. It was an extended, like 2 to 3 minute clip. But I know the Star Cruiser, they had 2 dinners a night. Mm-hmm. They've only gone down to 1.
Wow.
Because there's just not the demand for it, and they don't need to have 2 different dinners, so they can cut back on servers. So I'm not sure what's going on with the Star Cruiser. Something weird's happening. It's weird that the 2 that I saw left, and they kind of have a scripted response, almost like Disney says, like they had a following or something like that. So you need to let people know I'm no longer here. This is what you need to say. So I don't know if they're making cutbacks, changing things up. I've seen the YouTube warriors who just are looking for clicks saying that this is going to turn into a dinner theater, which is possible, but maybe it's just one overnight experience. I don't know, but it's expensive.
I would be cool if they canceled it, or not canceled it, but either did I've heard rumors or people talking, what if they did a dinner theater type thing, or they did, will you go on it for 12 hours? Would you pay $500-$600 for a 12-hour experience? Or, and I think about it, it'd be a heck of a lot easier paying the $600 for a 12-hour experience than paying $5,000 for a 48-hour experience.
Yeah.
So maybe they're doing something like that. Maybe they're doing the cutbacks. Is it big name characters that they're?
No, it's like some guy with a guitar. I don't remember what the other character was.
So it's not like the captain or anything.
No, it's not the captain, or it's just more the peripheral characters.
I know. One good thing that Disney's did the last week, they did cut out the having to pay for parking when you stay on a resort. So that's nice. And they announced it, and they did it like that night. They were like, okay, at noon we're announcing this, and at midnight you don't have to pay.
It's a step in the right direction. Yeah. There's still much more they need to do.
It seems like they're trying, but I know they can't reverse everything in a day.
Yeah.
You've got to fix things. So it seems like Disney's doing the right thing, and we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just wanted to talk about some of the movies that we might possibly get. There's news out there that Damon Lindelof from Lost and Watchmen and The Leftovers is working on sequel-based movies. It's kind of wishy-washy. There's not a lot of facts. I don't think it's a sequel to the sequel trilogy per se. I think it's going to take place after the sequel trilogy, so in a sense it is a sequel of the sequel trilogy, but it's not going to be part of the Skywalker saga.
And I'm down for that.
So I'm looking forward to just new. I want to go back to the theater, and I want to see Star Wars on the screen.
Right.
Patty Jenkins is off of Wonder Woman 3, so hopefully she's going back to Rogue Squadron, and we'll see that. Rian Johnson still is working on a movie.
Yeah.
But he still has to finish Knives Out 3. He's got the Netflix deal. But he says he still talks to Kathleen Kennedy. Taika still has his project, but I'm not sure. There hasn't been a lot of news after Thor: Love and Thunder. Mm-hmm. That movie was kind of a step down from Ragnarok.
Right.
and I don't know if it was just too silly or what, or if he needs to refocus this movie because there's not a lot of talk about it. So.
Right. I enjoyed Love and Thunder. I mean, you got to go in expecting a movie like that, knowing what you're getting into. Don't expect like action and stuff, and you get a silly movie. But if you're expecting a silly movie, it was a good movie.
Yeah, and there was no straight people in that movie, and by straight I mean non-comedic people.
Right.
The straight man sort of was
Gotcha.
the common phrase. I don't mean LGBTQ. I just felt like it was too many silly people in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Gotcha.
And so if he needs to refocus his movie, that's great. And there's also rumors that, we've talked about this, Filoni and Favreau have something in the works. But I don't know if that's a Disney Plus movie or if that's a big screen theater movie. Either way, Favreau and Filoni making a movie together is a slam dunk.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of movies, I don't know if my perception of movies is skewed because the past couple of years you're not paying to watch them, you're watching them at home.
Yeah.
So my perception, like Love and Thunder, I think I'd be mad if I paid it to go see it in a theater, but since I didn't pay anything, it was on Disney Plus for free, I was fine with it. Same thing with like Wonder Woman 84. If I'd have paid it to go see that in a theater, I'd have been pissed.
Yeah.
But it was free in my house, and I had 2 hours to kill, so why not?
Yeah, it's definitely playing a part on the streaming stuff because it's changed our habits. And going up to the winter social and having people over for Thanksgiving and stuff like that, I just never made it to the theater to see Black Panther. And it got to the point where I'm like, well, it's going to be out on Disney Plus in a month and a half or so. So
Right.
why spend the $50 to $100 taking the family to the theater? I'll just wait for it to hit Disney Plus, which...
Right.
I mean, Disney Plus just lost out, or Disney itself just lost out on possibly $100 because I'm waiting.
Right, and times how many people. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's going to stream Wednesday. It's starting streaming Wednesday.
This Wednesday?
Yep.
See? I don't even have to wait.
Exactly.
That long.
Yeah, but yeah, back, like, Knives Out, I enjoyed, I watched Glass Onion. I haven't watched Knives Out, but that was a decent movie. I kind of like those movies. It was kind of a weird movie because there's a big twist in the middle of it. It's almost like the Pulp Fiction thing where the movie starts over, but in the middle of it, when you're seeing it from different perspectives. So, and you got to pay attention to it. And those kind of movies that make you put your phone down, I kind of enjoy.
I have to say it again, Rian Johnson hasn't made a bad movie.
Yeah.
I know people are screaming in their cars or screaming at the podcast, no, Last Jedi! But I think The Last Jedi is a great movie. I just think people brought too much of their expectations with Luke Skywalker to that movie, which brought their experience down. But I don't think it's a bad movie.
Right. No, I think the two things that they did wrong with the sequel trilogy is they didn't have a plan, and they either needed to involve the original three, Luke, Han, and Leia, and Chewie in the four. They either needed to have them front and center or not feature them at all.
Yeah.
What they did with them was ridiculous, and I think that's what pissed a lot of people off.
So, with that said, Rian Johnson having free reign in the Star Wars universe to do something outside of the Skywalker saga, it's going to be phenomenal.
Right.
I'm excited about that possibility. But those are the 4 or 5 movies that are in the works for Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy's pushing retirement age. So I wouldn't be surprised, with the contracts being extended and such, I wouldn't be surprised if she retires from Lucasfilm soon.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are like, I can't wait for Kathleen Kennedy to retire, and I'm like, she's done good stuff. I mean, you don't agree with the sequel trilogy, but just because you don't agree with the sequel trilogy doesn't mean she didn't do a good job at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, because you've got all the shows which have been pretty good for the most part. Rogue One, Solo, which were phenomenal movies in my opinion. The Force Awakens was great. I enjoyed The Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker is the one that we'll just move past. But
I think with Rise of Skywalker, they tried fixing too many things.
Yeah, absolutely. It was too late to turn the ship around because they didn't have a plan. We won't go into that. But,
right.
But the question is, who's going to replace her? And I don't want Favreau to replace her. I think he's a great content maker, and it would be a shame for him to take that role, and we lose out on The Mandalorian and this whole thing that they're building up in the 5 years after Return of the Jedi universe that they're doing.
Right.
I don't know who would do it. Feige. There's been rumors Feige might do that, but I don't. he's got his Marvel thing, and Disney might want to make sure that he can direct that ship because there's so much riding on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's been the architect for that. So I don't think he would switch over,
right.
But that stranger things have happened, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Bad Batch.
I'm enjoying it. It's been fun.
I didn't like the first two.
Really?
I didn't think anything special about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just another heist. They ended up right where they started. That one didn't work for me, but episode 3 I thought was a slam dunk.
Right. Yeah, episode 3 was good. I kind of like when they do the single episode arcs, and it's and it's as far as the heist goes. Yeah, it's following, I think, the formula for every other show that's like the Bad Batch, where like the A-Team, for example, that's the first thing that comes into my mind, where it's like you got to go find something and they got to close it in an hour. It's like the old school 80s TV shows before we had DVRs and stuff. They had to make those dumb because they wanted it to where if you come in, you get home at 7:30, you can turn the TV on and you're like, it catches up real fast, so you're not missing the whole episode. So I think it's that same kind of formula they're used, at least for the first 2 episodes. And then the Crosshair, you can kind of see an internal struggle with Crosshair, but he's like, I'm a soldier, soldiers follow orders, and that's it. Yeah,
the ending when Cody, that was the surprise that Cody was back, Commander Cody, but that he went AWOL. It seems like everyone around Crosshairs is abandoning him for what is right rather than the soldier follows orders, and that's the hard line that Crosshairs follows. And it's interesting to see people just kind of drop out from him and say, no, this is wrong.
Right.
And so he's got people he's close to over and over again saying this is wrong. So it's an interesting setup for his character arc, and I just felt the first 2 episodes was like filler. Mm-hmm. You're starting the season with filler. But I thought maybe episode 3 should have been the first episode to kind of set things up. Right.
Well, they had to, I guess, set expectations or whatever. I mean, yeah, it was filler, but it was a reset, I think.
Yeah.
The first 2 episodes, because you learned, okay, Omega has grown, and you got to see them all in their new armor, and there's definitely a time jump, but you don't know how big of a time jump.
Yeah.
You don't know how fast Omega's set to grow.
Yeah.
So, did you catch the Easter egg of the Boba Fett helmet in the background at Sid's?
No.
There's a prototype Boba Fett helmet in the background.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to go back and watch that.
So now there's rumors that like Omega's going to don the Boba Fett armor.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd be all for that. I like the new Stormtrooper helmets, like the proto early version.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? What are they trying to signal? But then later on, they called out the defense recruitment bill, which sounded like it would replace the clones. So I think these are recruits, non-clone recruits, that are donning prototype Stormtrooper helmets, and they become Stormtroopers. They're not clones anymore.
Right. I think that, I agree. I think that's what they did was they had, okay, these are the clones, and they've got these helmets, and then the Stormtroopers are these guys. So you've got 2 different things. And it did feel, at least on the 3rd episode, that they were definitely saying a lot more clones. They made a point to feel like clones are starting to go AWOL because they don't agree with the Empire.
Yeah. And the Clones War is the Clones possessive war is over.
Right.
And so they're kind of without a cause, and they're just doing what they've always done, but it's not what they need to be doing anymore. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not making any sense there.
No, you're making sense, but yeah.
Their time has passed. Their purpose has passed, and they're looking for new purpose in the galaxy, and maybe they're like, war's not it.
Yeah.
We're done with war. The thing that we were created for is over.
Right.
So the whole episode 3 set up the season for the universe in that respect. And I mean, like, it's the universe at large. What's going on in the Star Wars universe in this time for the clones, which I thought was interesting. And the whole Crosshairs arc, I thought, was more interesting than what happened in the first 2 episodes.
Right. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Crosshair, and is he going to finally, get that stick out of his butt for, the Empire?
Yeah.
But
did you finish Willow?
Yes.
What'd you think?
I'm trying to. Once I got done watching it, I'm trying to look at it through your eyes, where you're like the bad the sloppy writing in it. I enjoyed it, but the only part that kind of, as you looking at it through your eyes, was like, why did he have to break his staff? He didn't have to break his staff. He could have just handed it to her. It's a little bit over dramatic, but I enjoy. The battle was great. It was a good. I enjoyed the series. It does feel like there's going to be 2 more seasons. The way that they with the closing credit scene.
Yeah, it seemed like they were setting up. Yeah, there's just season 1 of of 3 seasons. I thought I liked the first episode and I liked the last episode. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think this could have been a Disney Plus movie.
Right.
And I probably would have enjoyed it because it would have been tighter. The writing would have been better, less filler. Mm-hmm. So.
I enjoyed it. It felt like, there were some subtle teas, like Laura Dannon's, her hair seemed to be getting redder.
Yeah.
And then they had like a flashback scene, and then all of a sudden it's yellow. A blonde again. So you're like, okay, I'm not imagining that.
I don't think it was blonde. I think that was the bad guy taking form as her to trick the other dude into following him. The worm?
Okay.
I think the worm made itself look like a Laura Dannon with the short blonde hair. I don't think that was
no. Like in the wedding scene. In the wedding scene, it was blonde.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the end.
Yeah, but the end, that was totally the worm or totally somebody else. Yeah. That was... It was good. I felt bad for the wizard because you were just like, all right, his story's just beginning, but now you realize you got a totally other opposite end of it because he's not really dead.
Yeah.
He's just in Hades or Purgatory or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah. That weird universe.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I don't blame him because if she showed up to me dressed like that, I'd follow her too.
Okay. That's creepy.
She was like all in leather and stuff.
It's a little cringe. Speaking of cringe, Hasbro held a Q&A this week with a bunch of fan channels. Chris and Jing were there. They answered a lot of questions. And I watched all 4 of the sessions to kind of bring about the spark notes of what I learned. So I'll talk a little bit about that. There was some friction between the fan channels and Hasbro. There was a lot of confrontation, and it felt cringy. Mm-hmm. And it felt like some of these fan channels were whiny babies. Why does the vintage collection version of Andor have not accurate boots, but the Black Series does? And it's just like,
are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
Oh my god.
That was an argument. And they have a budget that they have to operate in, and they're doing the best they can with the budget that they have. And if there's a problem, they need to up the budget for the line itself. For the vintage collection, they're able to pull other pieces which are in the spirit of the boots that Andor had. They're not the exact boots, but people were complaining, why does Black Series have that and I don't?
Well, it's the same thing with Marvel Legends because they can pull through a bunch of stuff, and if they can save money on casting or molding, why not?
Yeah. They got to do what they got to do. Like the Ponda Baba is not screen accurate from the Black Series. This is actually Luke Skywalker's yellow jacket.
Oh, now I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been painted orange because that's what Ponda Baba has, and it's pretty close. And you didn't even recognize that.
No, now that I see it, it looks like it could be a whole Luke Skywalker body, and then you just put Ponda Baba's head on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Different hands, different head. So they have to do that kind of stuff. At least we get the figure, but I guess some people would say, well, it's not the figure. It's not an accurate figure. So
you know what? Star Wars fans need to quit being babies.
Yeah. Hasbro did say that sometimes Lucasfilm is able to make the shows faster than the figures can come out. So, they could do a show with the volume and all that stuff in 12 months. It takes them 2 years to make the figure. So I understand that now. I'm sure it's not always true. It's probably true in some cases. But that's why some of the figures don't come out on time.
Right, and Lucasfilm is notorious for keeping everything close to the chest when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're not. So yeah, you're a year into making it, but then they may not release it until the movie. They may not get what they need until the show comes out.
Yeah, they did say that the Halloween and the holiday figures are doing good. They've got a positive response for those custom figures that they're doing, 6-inch stuff. Someone suggested a holiday Wampa.
That'd be cool.
And I thought you would like that, so that's why I included it. They asked about the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. Chris said that what they've announced, he feels, and this is more like a feeling, it's not an exact, like, this is the first 6 months, but he did feel like he's only revealed the first half of the year.
Okay.
So there's more for the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi on its way. They were talking about, there was a lot of talk, a lot of confrontation about the Boba Fett that came out, the comic book looking Boba Fett.
Uh-huh.
It was interesting because Hasbro, when they had their press release, said it would be $21.99, and Target came out with $22.99, and Hasbro kind of seemed like they put them in front of the bus, just like they're able to charge whatever they want.
Right.
It's not our problem. So, but they did say that it's not a straight repack. That they do have. There's a lot of stuff that goes into making that figure. Rocker hips. It takes 3 different molds, for example, and you got to have someone assemble that. And they said it was a very highly detailed figure, and it costs a lot to make. And when you don't have a full wave to kind of balance out the cost,
mm-hmm.
You're just making that one that's going to Target. It's going to cost more. So.
Well, maybe when they announce that kind of stuff, they need to say that, it's a. We put rocker hips in it, or we put new joints in it, and then people may be happier with it. To me, it doesn't matter because I'd keep that kind of figure at least in the package, but yeah. I don't need 2 more Boba Fetts. I mean, I could need them, but it's like the, I don't know. But you see, like, shit. I'm losing. I think I'm jumping ahead, but I'll say this. But I've noticed, like, the 6-inch Boba Fett Black Series carded 40th anniversary. Those things used to fly off the shelf. Now they're sitting on the shelf. And, of course, they're $35 or $33, so that may play into it. Yeah. And you already spent $35 on that Boba Fett, so why would I want it on a card? Yep. But you'll go to Target, and there's 6 of them sitting on the shelf.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
See, I'm jumping the game.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead. I see there. That's the main topic. We'll get to that, why it seems like people are quitting Black Series and they're stepping away from the hobby. So we'll get into that, but you're right.
So I think like I said, I'm jumping the game, but yeah.
Interestingly, more retro collection in 2023, and it sounds like it's not just re-releases. Someone did ask for a Power of the Force 2 retro line, but they're not the 70s retro, so don't expect that to happen. We're not going to get Buff Luke anytime soon. Mm-hmm. But nothing is off the table, they said, and Star Wars has fun history. Someone was asking for a buff Mando and a buff Grogu, which I thought would be interesting to see a Power of the Force 2 style Mandalorian and Grogu. Oh my!
If they really want the Power of the Force 2 stuff, they just need to go to any flea market.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to search hard to find that stuff. I'll print out you a retro sticker, sell it to you for 50 cents. You slap that on the figure itself. We'll go to Second Chance and just buy the whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's fine. If you really want Power of the Force 2 retro stuff, man, just go to any toy store. They have them plentiful.
They hinted at a HasLab for 2023.
Okay.
Someone did throw out the idea of a TVC Ghost, and all they did was a light laugh. They're not announcing anything that hasn't been announced yet. Mm-hmm. But I like that someone threw out the Ghost for you, so they were taking care of you.
I think people are waiting on that Ghost. If it's not through Micro Galaxy Squadron, I think. We are going to get a Ghost this year. I don't know who's going to put it out, but somebody will make a Ghost this year. I have a feeling. It's too the timeline. It's just people are wanting it, and then you have Ahsoka coming out, which you know that the Ghost will be featured in it. So somebody is going to make a Ghost this year.
Yeah. I would say April to summer, somewhere late spring, early summer is the time that a Ghost will drop.
Right.
Micro Galaxy Squadron or HasLab, whatever the case may be, it's going to be something like that.
Why not both?
Why not? Let's just double dip on that one.
And then people are going to bitch that it came with the wrong Phantom, or the Phantom don't fit in right, or oh my God.
They complained about pre-orders.
Yeah.
And pre-orders are dictated by the vendor. They allocate numbers for pre-orders. So if they're ordering 10,000 figures, 5,000 of those figures are pre-order.
Okay.
And then the other 5 are, and this is not what they said, this is just me using it as an example. The other 5 will be used when the time comes. So if it's January 31st, they've already sold out 5,000 pre-orders, and then on January 31st, they're going to use the other 5,000 to sell on their online store. But it helps them gauge future items. So, for example, if an Obi-Wan Kenobi pre-order sells out, Going forward, they might be making more of an Obi-Wan Kenobi figure available in the future. That doesn't mean the exact figure, but they know the character's popular. So instead of 10,000 figures, we need to do 15 for the next version of Obi-Wan.
Gotcha.
Sustainability is a concern. If you're a sequel trilogy fan, there's very little out there for you.
Right.
Which is interesting because it's all of the old kind of school collectors, original trilogy, prequel stuff. There's nothing for sequel trilogy. There's nothing to nurture that fandom. For kids, there's the lightsabers, and then there's the babies, which are Mattel figures.
I think so. Yeah, because
The
my
baby
wife
Ewoks and stuff.
Yeah, my wife actually collected all of those because there again, you were able to find them on clearance. So she's like, "I'll just get them all."
But sustainability does tie into what we're going to talk later.
Right.
But the future of the line. But it is a concern, and they need to be doing more, or Lucasfilm needs to be doing more to attract more for kids.
Yeah, I think the Micro Galaxy Squadron there again is a step in the right direction because, like, us being adult collectors, we can have that stuff, and our kids could play with it, and if they break it, it's a big deal. But I know I can probably find another one for cheap, or you could, like right now with Target selling the stuff for $6, you can go buy them and say, play with these.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. I think a little bit.
Yeah. I did suggest on a previous episode that they do seem to sculpt once and then scale for 6-inch and 3.75. And they did kind of admit that's what they do, but there's some still engineering that goes on. So if they have a 6-inch figure and they scale it down to 3.75, the engineering is not the same. So there is some work that has to go into joint making, wall thickness. You can have a thinner wall, even though it'll be thicker for 6-inch, but when you scale that down, that might be too thin for 3.75. So they might have to increase the wall thickness for some of those smaller figures. But there is some engineering that goes on. So that I thought it was just interesting that they kind of confirmed what I was suspecting, that they sculpt once and mold twice, scale it down. Or
they got to cut costs, man. I mean, and the technology's there, so why not?
Yeah.
If you can you're 90% of the way there, and it just takes 10% to change it, it's cost savings.
Yep. Someone asked about finishing the original 21 Kenner figures, this Black Series, and Chris almost slipped up and said something.
Okay.
But he stopped himself, and he gave the normal line, "We can't announce anything.
Yeah.
We can't talk about anything that hasn't been announced." I don't know if they mean, when they say the original 21, are they talking like the Gontroid as a Black Series figure, or are they specifically talking about that line they're doing with the retro painting on the figure, so it looks like this Greedo, for example. This is the Kenner Greedo. They took off the vest. They gave him the orange jumpsuit. The lime green jumpsuit. I was looking at Ponda Baba as I picked it up. So I don't know if they mean more these Black Series, the ones that have been painted to look like the original Kenner figure, or are they talking about Hammerhead? We don't have a Hammerhead yet. Are they talking about Snaggletooth? We don't have a Snaggletooth yet. Or are they looking for those in the original colors?
Right.
Either way, I want a Snaggletooth and a Hammerhead. So let's go, Hasbro.
Right. And you printed your own gunk droid, so you're good with that.
Yeah. I don't think I printed one for myself, to be honest. Should make one.
All right.
Someone did ask about vintage collection, small speeders and vehicles. Hasbro would love to do more of those, but they didn't seem like a priority right now. I think, again, it's just because we've been trained when a vehicle's on the store shelf, we're just going to wait for it to go on clearance.
Right.
They're asked about a blurg. There's no plans right now, but they said that they love the blurg. It was a different response when they asked about the N1 Starfighter for the Mandalorian. There was response was completely different. It was completely different. It was like, we have nothing to announce. We'll see what happens later down the pike.
Right.
It wasn't we love it. It would be great. It was this, that. It was just stern. We have nothing to announce right now.
You think they don't want to have another Rancor slip up?
Probably, yes. I wouldn't. If I was a betting man, I would say that there's an N1 Starfighter about to drop in the next couple months.
Right.
Based on the response. Comparing the blurg to the N1 Starfighter. One seemed like, yeah, it's great. That'd be a great opportunity. Maybe we'll do the blurg. And then the N1 Starfighter, we have nothing to announce. We can't talk about it. We'll see what happens later down the road.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We'll see the N1 Starfighter soon.
Exactly. Not like, oh, when the Rain Corps comes out next week, everybody's like, oh, Patrick, why?
Yeah. Well, it's not Patrick, it's Chris.
Oh, was it Chris? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Patrick has gone behind the curtain. You don't see Patrick anymore.
Oh, okay.
He's the face of hate in the community.
Gotcha.
People don't like Patrick.
All right. Chris is the one that's the yes man that's always smiling and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give Chris some credit because when I was at Celebration, have I talked about this?
I don't know. We can talk about it because it's been a year.
When I was it was in May. At Celebration, I was just walking through the Hasbro booth, and Chris had a Darksaber. Mm-hmm. He just walked up to a kid. He's like, "Here you go."
That's awesome.
And the kid was like, "Huh?" And the dad was just like, "What do you say?" "Thank you." He's like, Chris was just like, "Enjoy, have fun."
So he just gave him a Darksaber.
He just gave a random kid in the Hasbro booth a Darksaber.
Wow. Like the $200 Darksaber? Or
Yeah. The Black Series.
Wow. Well, that's good on him. You know, I think that's the reason why I like going to cons like that, because magic happens when you're at a con.
Yeah.
You may not get it every time, but you at least, like, you can at least see it happen. And you're like...
I saw it happen. There was no cameras around. Mm-hmm. It was just like, let's just give that kid a Darksaber. Let's just do something nice. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for clicks. It wasn't for likes. It wasn't for goodwill. It was just like, let's just do that for that kid.
Right.
And I thought that was really sweet. And so,
you know,
I don't really hate Chris as much, I think, because of that.
No, that's good on them, because then you're becoming, when something like that happens, now you got a lifelong fan. Because that kid's going to remember that forever. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When they were asked about windowless figures and figure swapping, they're not going to make any changes to their packaging, but they had no answers to that.
Right.
What to do. They didn't have anything to solve. No one suggested the Legos tape, where if you tape it up, things change.
That's the only thing they can do, is some kind of tape, because and there again, you know, and we're bringing stuff up that we've talked about before, but when we talked to Max from Jazzwares, he opens your eyes to stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes a whole lot of sense why they're doing the windowless stuff, because it is, you know, packaging is the one piece that you have it for 5 minutes and it's in the trash.
Change is never easy.
Right.
So when you're going through change like this is a huge change, where you grew up 40 years seeing your figures in package, and suddenly you can't. And then you've got the case of this Dungeon and Dragon figure.
Oh my God.
And there's only 4 instances of it, but it's like social media influencers, action figure influencers, who got the new Dungeons and Dragon. Pixel Dan opened up his, and he moved the arm, and the arm snapped off.
Right.
Like the plastic just snapped in half. So he's like, maybe it was just a bad one. Maybe it was the cold, because I guess he lives up in the Northwest, and, you know, plastic can get brittle. And he got another one. He waited for it to warm up, and he moved the arm again. On this new figure, it snapped off. There's figures without heads. The head snapped off in transit before they opened it. It's a disadvantage of having the plastic, without the plastic in the window. But that's the worst case scenario.
Right.
And when people see that, you know, I worry that's going to play into the success of all the toy lines going forward.
Right. And yeah, I feel that. But as long as the stores are being respectful, and they understand, and they're like, hey, stuff happens, and they swap it, you know, I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is the figure swaps. And I've seen it, and I've seen pictures of it. I actually seen it locally, where somebody bought a Holiday Mandalorian and put like a clone pilot or something in it, and returned it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen where people put like arms. Like there was one thing of a wrestler, somebody took the belts and something else, and then put like arms where the belts were, just filled the holes so nobody's paying attention.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's Walmart training your people, or, you know, retailers are going to have to train your people to check returns better.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it. And if you do some anti-theft, some tape that you can tell it's been messed with.
Yeah.
It's the only way you're going to be able to battle that.
Yeah, they just got to make sure they have great plastic. They can't cut back on the plastic.
Right.
Because when things arrive broken like that, I mean, it's just the worst case scenario, and I don't think collectors want to see that. They want to see a positive experience with this new packaging. So someone asked about an A-Wing, a Black Series scale A-Wing. And the log line was given. We can't talk about anything that has been announced, but they said they did confirm that vehicles don't work well in that scale.
Because they're huge.
They're huge. And an A-wing, which is a smaller version of like an X-wing or a B-wing or a Y-wing, it's like the smaller of those vehicles. They said that's just straight up too expensive, and they probably won't be doing that.
Right, because you're at $100 a vehicle for those, so it's hard to spend that.
I mean, how much do you think they would sell this Cantina for? $300?
I'd say $5.
You think $5? This
Yeah.
is not even complete, but yeah.
I'd say something that size would be about $5, and it'd have to be a HasLab.
It's just crazy. And not a lot of people would be able to afford that or buy that, and
Or
it wouldn't
have
be
the-
successful.
Right, or have the space.
Yeah. I don't have the space. I can't even finish this one. Asked about finishing the 96, and it sounded like it's not a priority for Hasbro. They'll do it if they can, but they wouldn't put any obscure Kenner figures over hot, relevant characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're going to not do a Mandalorian figure for... Who haven't they made yet?
That's your department, man.
Yeah, I'm looking. Have they made a Maydeen in the Vintage Collection? I'm not sure they have.
I don't think so. They might, but I don't think.
I don't think they have, and so they're not going to put a Mandalorian figure down below, beneath Maydeen,
Right.
or something like that. So they said the TVC is not going away, and they have many years ahead of them. So it's going to happen eventually, maybe. But asked about packaging standards. Example was crushed bubbles at Walmart. All they said was that they work with retail partners and stressed the importance of delivering things in mint condition. They had a conversation with Walmart, and they're looking for ways to improve shipping in 2023. Do you want me to keep going, or is this getting boring?
No, dude, you're good. I'm sorry, my car's in the shop, and
I'm just trying to read the room.
I know, you're
read the
good.
room. I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying, like, is this working?
No, it's working.
I got two more now.
Two more, do it.
Now that I say it. They were asked why figures... Did I already talk about this one? They were asked why a figure gets They were asking why a figure like a repaint gets made when other figures fans have been asking for get overlooked. Hasbro said they have a budget they have to adhere to, so no new tools, kit bashing, things like that. They all have to fall in line with the budget they've established for the Star Wars line. Mm-hmm. They said a repaint like, and I'm assuming this, the comic book version of Boba Fett were an additive. So they have a budget, whether that's $200,000, a year. I'm just throwing numbers out. And they have to make vintage collection figures in that budget. But then something like this comic book Target, sounds like Target pays for them to make that figure, which is an additive, which is why that gets made over a vintage collection meeting, for example.
I mean, yeah, if Target's is going to pay, I mean, it's the same thing like everything. If you've got a line of stuff you're working on, and then somebody, you're paying for it, and then Target comes through and is like, hey, I'll pay you $500,000 for this figure or whatever, that figure's going to get made first.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for doing that.
Yeah.
It's like that with everything. You pay money, you pay for it, you can get moved to the front of the line.
Breaking news: a capitalistic, a for-profit company is trying to make money. Beep 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 beep.
Oh no!
Putting money before fans. Beep 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 beep. Hasbro did note the concern from fans about the increased cost, which in every session that I've heard or saw, everybody was asking about the increase in cost for both Black Series and Vintage Collection. They were asking Hasbro the tough question: Is cost going to make this line unsustainable for a collector? And they didn't have an answer. And what answer can you give at that point? The team is working at cost and quality, but they had no comment on the longevity of a line, with the stress of cost affecting the stress being that the cost of buying figures might break a collector later down the road. Right.
Are we talking Black Series or TVC or both?
Both. I mean, you got a $17 TVC figure and a $27 Black Series figure. Mm-hmm. These are just getting more and more expensive. You could at one point buy 5 Black Series figures for $100. Right. Now you're getting 3.
Yeah.
Essentially. I
think you've got to and shoot, what am I trying to say? Anyway, the thing that just look at what's the 4 Horsemen?
Mythic Legions.
Mythic Legions. They're charging $30 for a figure?
Something like that.
But you're getting a hell of a figure for $30. I think that if the quality's there and if the accessories are there, people are not going to have problems paying that. Just like the Bandai stuff, you're paying $50 to $100 for a figure on a Bandai, somewhere it's a little smaller. It's like a 5-inch figure, but you're getting so much more with that figure. I think if Hasbro would just say, F it, we're going to charge you $35-$40 for a figure, but you're going to get all this stuff with the figure, we'd have no problem with it. Like if that FET that you said, if that was the norm, that new FET,
yeah,
and it was a $40 figure, but you got, that one I think needs more to it. But if you got a figure with that much stuff, that like hands and heads,
yeah,
throw a couple of hands, throw a couple of heads in there, and you're charging $40 for that figure, I'd have no problem paying that.
Right. But they're cutting costs to save money. You're not going to get that.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. They need to say,
yeah.
F's cutting costs. Let's up our price and give them more. And people would do it. People would gripe, but you would also look at the packaging and be like, okay, I'm getting all this extra stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine with it. I wouldn't buy as many, but I'd be more happier with my purchases.
So that last question leads into the topic of the week.
Yes.
Which is, so I've noticed people starting to back out of buying Black Series.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question I kind of had was, how much is too much?
Right.
At what point do I drop out and say no more vintage collection? I've kind of taken a step back from the Black Series because it's just too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I could buy more vintage collection figures than I can for Black Series. But what is the breaking point? And we kind of put that out to the audience too. We asked it on Facebook. We got tons of responses this week. But
to reiterate, the way you approached it was the hobby in general, not just TVC or Black Series. It's like, when do I step away from collecting as a whole?
Yeah.
To reiterate stuff. But yeah, we got some really awesome responses.
We'll get into that. I also wanted to talk about age, which I don't think gets looked at enough.
Right.
Because it seems like the younger kids are not buying the figures. I know some do.
Right.
But I don't know if it's a big crowd like it is today for the older generation.
Right.
I think at one point we had like 25,000 collectors buying action figures, and that's since dwindled to about 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any faction figures. I can't point to look at this, article that says it happened to decline. I don't know. I lost my train of thought in trying to say that sentence. But it does seem like there's been a decline in the number of collectors. The costs are going up. Why are people leaving the hobby? Or if you haven't left the hobby, what's it going to take?
Right.
Going back to age, that's where I was going. So if you're 45, so if you were 10 years old in 1977 when Star Wars came out, and you started buying the action figures, today you're about 55?
Roughly, yeah.
So you're about 10 years away from retirement. So yeah, you have more discretionary income, but are you going to be collecting when you're 65 in 10 years? And going on down, so does that mean that we have about 20 years left of the hobby,
mm-hmm.
and the younger generation will take a left turn and go somewhere else? I don't know. And these are some of the things that I've just been questioning in my head. I don't know if we have any answers to them.
I don't have any answers. I mean, are we going to go the way of model trains and model cars, where there's still people that do it?
But it's more of a niche.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I think that may be the answer. But Star Wars, I don't see Star Wars going anywhere as a whole, because with Disney powering it and them having lands, in their theme parks for Star Wars I don't think is going anywhere. It's like, I think Star Wars and Pixel, is it Pixel? Who it's Toy Story. Pixar, sorry. I think Star Wars and Pixar are kind of on the same level.
Yeah.
And as you don't, like Toy Story, you still see the Toy Story characters, but then they're developing more stuff. So maybe at a Star Wars will get to that point where you're still seeing more Star Wars stuff, but it's, you're getting away from the main characters, which I think that's where they're going.
Yeah. Maybe. You were talking about movies. I'm thinking about the Lego movie,
mm-hmm.
which was a phenomenal hit. Lego Batman came out a couple years later, and a couple years after that, Lego Movie 2 came out. But that didn't perform as well as the Lego Movie, and some
mm-hmm.
might say, well, it's a lesser movie. Others might say that the audience from the Lego Movie grew up,
right,
and they were too old to see the Lego Movie 2. Which, if you apply that to Star Wars, maybe people might get too old and age out. If Hasbro's starting to dwindle the budget because they see that it's not as strong as it once was, the brand is not as strong,
mm-hmm.
that's a sign right there that perhaps that the hobby's winding down. I don't know.
Right.
The modern line.
And like you're saying, you know, like, because you're gonna have a gap, I think, because like all the kids now that are like your kids' age, that are like in their early teens,
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna probably go out of it in their teenage years. So then you're gonna have another 10 or 15 years till they start having kids, and then they're like, oh, I want to get my kids into what I was in. So I think there's going to be an ebb and flow. It may be a 5 to 10 year, you know, where things go to crap, and then all of a sudden they're back.
Yeah.
Unless the kids that are 5 and 6 now, then, you know, you're going to have generations liking Star Wars. So I think that's what Hasbro's kind of trying to do, or Star Wars rather, where they're like with the dolls and with the, you know, whether it's not Galactic Heroes anymore, but with the stuff for the younger kids, and then you've got them till they're 15 or 16. And then at that point, the people that were out, you know, 10 years ago, now they're having kids, and their kids are, you know, it's got to be a perpetual wheel type thing that Hasbro needs to get. That I could see them trying, but they need to do a better job, or they're trying to do a good job.
Let's look at the generational differences. Whereas we preferred to buy video games,
right?
And kids today will just download the right to play the video game on the Xbox. They're not buying a physical disc,
right?
Same thing with DVDs. They'll just buy it off of iTunes, and I prefer to still go to Best Buy and get the physical disc, because then I feel like I got something with my money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to play in a part to the success of Star Wars. Kids, younger generations don't seem to want to have the thing. They're good with the digital asset.
Right. Well, I mean, that's happened in the music industry.
Yeah.
You know, it's cheaper to go spend $12 a month on Spotify than buying the physical copy, but there's also been a regeneration or a resurgence in LPs where people will pay $50 for an LP, an album. You know, they may never play, but they're like, I've got this really cool artwork.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. I don't think people are going to have rooms like we have full of Star Wars stuff. They may have a shelf.
This will be a niche someday.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Series, do you think, $40 is too expensive for a single Black Series figure?
If it's one guy, if it's a Guido with a gun, yes.
Greedo
with the gun, yes.
Yeah.
It's too much money. If they're going to put extra heads and sculpts, I think that is too. Fett? They needed extra hands and extra heads. If they were to put an extra head in there and an extra set of hands, then you're where you need to be with that figure.
Yeah, we're talking about the Tython Boba Fett. I see that they just on the backpack, because you know Han hits the backpack in Return of the Jedi and breaks it.
Right.
In the show, they put a steel Band-Aid, for lack of a better term, right now, over it. This, they just painted the steel on it. It's not even a raise. It's just they reused the old jetpack and they slapped some silver paint on it to act as that patch. But
yeah,
it's
that's
not
pretty
a
bad.
raised patch on the...
And, I mean, how hard would it have been to take one that you already have molded? I mean, you would have had to make steel molds and stuff. I understand that, you know, it's $20,000 versus $100,000. So, and people may be like, oh, look, they did that.
So I think $40 is way too much. You know, $30 for a Black Series, single Black Series figure is making me kind of step back and say I'd prefer to grab a Micro Galaxy ship than a Black Series figure. I never finished the Obi-Wan Kenobi line. I think I want to pick up Obi-Wan, but that's about it.
So you want to do the Black Series Obi-Wan that's stocking the shelves right now, that's peg warming?
No, this one, the white version. The one that's on Target is the blue version of Obi-Wan. This is the white kind of Jedi all alone cutting up a space whale. That's the one that I want.
Okay. And so you would pay $25 to $30 for that figure with just a couple of accessories?
Yeah, I think I want just that one because that was Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think it's more of a personal preference. Like, I don't feel like you need to get the Darth Vader.
Right.
If the Darth Vader had the split-out helmet, then yeah, I'd grab that one. But
that's what I'm talking about. If you would you could do a normal Darth Vader, it'd be the same. Well, you'd have to remold the head.
You have to
remold the neck. The neck. Well, the neck, because then you'd have to put a neck joint in it or something where the head can pop off.
So I'm saying because of last year, I would spend $25 on Obi-Wan Kenobi because of last year.
Right.
The experience, the celebration, all that stuff.
And because Ewan McGregor's such a sexy man.
Yeah. For Darth Vader, I already have a bunch of Darth Vaders. I don't need a Obi-Wan accurate Darth Vader.
Right.
If the helmet was cracked, then yeah, I would consider that, but no.
Right.
$30 is pushing it. And for the vintage collection, for a regular figure, I would have thought $20 was too much, but I did order that comic book version of for Boba Fett.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe like a regular release, $20 is too much for a vintage collection figure.
I have to agree 100%. I think 15 is where they need to be.
And what are they right now? 16?
Yeah. I think they're pushing it on the regular releases.
I'll pull up Hasbro Pulse real quick, but yeah, it's just getting to be more challenging to collect the things that we like modern wise, because of the cost. And so when I look at the Cassian Andor from the vintage collection, it's $17.99. We're $3 away from that $20 mark. Paz Vizsla, which is a bigger figure, is $27.99. The Skiff Guard is $16.99. So it's pushing it. It's pushing.
But I mean, that Paz Vizsla's got a lot more stuff to it.
It's a lot more plastic,
and it's got more accessories, right?
Yeah. So we asked people on Facebook. Ted from the Force, of course, said, I haven't stopped collecting, but I've certainly pared down what I collect. I used to be a completionist with Black Series, as was I. And that's me commenting on that, Jason. And now I've only picked up a few figures that I'm drawn to for one reason or another, which would be me for that Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's Jason talking, not Ted. But back to Ted. Typically, one or two of each wave I'll pick up. Display space is smaller. There's a small consideration that went into this decision. The money-grabbing repaints are a large consideration, although the pandemic brought on challenges with finding figures and online sales taking some of the thrill out of the hunt. That aspect didn't slow me down. I don't see leaving collecting behind completely at any time soon, as I'm still having fun with it, but I'm picking up way less than I have in the past. And I said that cost seems to be a theme based on what he was saying, then also what people were saying in the Hasbro Q&A. And he came back and said, cost has been a factor for a couple figures for me. Cobb Vanth comes to mind. I don't feel like a figure that I wanted to pay. Didn't feel like a figure he wanted to pay $35 for, but he caught a sale much closer to the cost that he would, so he picked that up. As long as he can get a figure under $30 and it's a figure he wants, he'll add it to his collection and keep buying.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. That Cobb Vanth I was excited about because that character was so awesome in Book of Boba Fett and then or Mandalorian, whichever. Well, he was in both of them. And then when the figure came out, it was a downer on that figure. And there again, it was a $35, $40 figure.
Yeah. Alfonso,
yeah,
who did our logo, said that prices. He has quit collecting. Prices was number one. It's not worth the amount for the figure. Fighting over scalpers for prices to compete with the things that he wants is not worth it. Mm-hmm. He feels bad when he would buy a $38 exclusive figure that he can buy now for $6 on Target. That's a problem.
That's a big problem.
He said that quality is cheap and non-consistent articulation for what he wants is one of the factors. Mm-hmm. Repaints, repacks, re-30th, 340th, 350th anniversaries, like it's all getting repacked and it's just not worth getting anymore. Prices compared to AEW, WWE, Marvel Legends, or even McFarlane are way cheaper and better quality. McFarlane even does 7 inches, so I haven't compared cost between other figures. I'm just so focused on Star Wars, but I guess I can't comment on that one. But
I think it has to go back to licensing because they are paying probably a 10 to 20% licensing fee for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And George Lucas, well, now it's Disney, but George Lucas was not going to let Hasbro get the best of them like he did the first go around. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I agree because it does feel like Star Wars. You're paying a premium for everything Star Wars. You know, I have a Nixon Boba Fett watch on, for example. This watch without the Star Wars, let's say it's $100 watch without the Star Wars, but it's $120 watch because they put a Star Wars Boba. Yeah, you got the Boba tax or the Star Wars tax on it, so you feel that Star Wars is always something more expensive. It's always more expensive.
He also said too much variation in card variation, color variation, etc. So when he says color variation, I don't know if he means like the carbonized version, but I do agree with the card I think we don't need the archive anymore. As much as I like the Clone Wars, the Tartakovsky Black Series Clone Wars, the packaging, that's probably what he's talking about. There's too many of those to track down. And
now because I was looking at those, like the General Grievous is a totally different. Is that
It's the same Grievous. It's got a different paint scheme to match what was in the cartoon.
But like the Samuel L. Jackson,
the Mace Windu.
Mace Windu, that they just put armor on him, right?
Yeah, same head.
Same head, but those those are characters we haven't gotten in that style, so why not buy it if you were into it?
Yeah.
But it's hard to justify buying something just because I like the card back. But I know people do that.
Do. Said do.
I said do.
And then he ended with deluxe figures with barely deco or accessories, which you're saying with this Boba Fett.
Right.
That's a problem too. So yeah, people are starting to step away, I guess.
Right.
Tim Thiel. It's been a while since I've seen Tim. I think last spring was when I saw him when he did the painting, the Yoda painting for
I saw him at Toylanta.
Yeah, he said he stepped away, but for a lot of reasons. He's been collecting since before there were Kenner figures, and it's been a fun ride. He stopped buying figures when they passed the $10 mark.
Wow.
Which is, 20 years ago?
Probably. That's a long time.
Yeah. He's an opener and an army builder. He's got about 600 stormtroopers. That was easy to do when they were $5 or less. But the rising cost has been a complete factor for him stepping back. He was all in when the prequels came out. He has everything Hasbro released at that time. He loves ships, which he also army built. Then the prices started going up. The sequels came out, and the flood of toys started hitting shelves like there was no tomorrow. He's never been a completionist, so he doesn't see the point keeping up with all the re-releases. Plus, the Disney stuff is not his cup of tea. So it was an easy pass. Thirdly, I'm out of room. My Star Wars room can only support displays for 1 or 2 movies at a time, and who has the time to swap out displays constantly? Fourth, getting involved with the collecting community has turned him into a boxed seal collector, and that's just not any fun. The fun was the hunt and building dioramas, but I've started selling it all, at least the modern box stuff. I still enjoy the thousands of figures that I've opened, but I don't need any more.
Right.
So I guess enough is enough for him.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder when I might cross that that land.
I can see myself with Star Wars being close to maxed out, but at that point I would go into like Mythic Legions or another brand because I'm or you're at that. I'm definitely at the point where I'm buying stuff where it's either on like super clearance or it's ultra expensive. Buying either like the one piece a year type thing where you're spending $500 to $1,000 on a piece and that's all you buy for the year.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at in collecting, or I'm going to go get into Mythic Legions just because I got an itch to scratch.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. I'm fighting that urge.
I'm running out of space here myself.
Right.
And I don't know where to put things. I don't want to start boxing it up, but I guess who needs a couch? I can just sit on the floor and watch TV.
Right, exactly. I mean,
know.
That's truthfully been one of the most exciting points of my remodel is when I realized that I can move a lot more stuff around and make a lot more room, even though now it's just taking up more of my house.
Yeah.
So now I have more room to let my stuff breathe and maybe add to it, whereas I didn't have it 6 months ago. So it's an exciting time for me as a collector. But then again, you're like, do you really want to spend more money?
Yeah. Neil Mathley said, too many exclusives. Things got harder to find. Increase in prices, but decrease in quality. Kind of echoing what's been said. Brandon Zanin said, I stopped at the beginning of Return of the Sith line. Had been collecting since before Power of the Force 2, I think. Did he say Power of the Force 2 or Power of the Force? Either way, still have most of my collection. Just got too crazy and checking in here and there. It looks like it got much worse in his opinion. Hasbro kind of ruined things. My takeaway from that was that the brand has been diluted, which I've heard several people say since Disney's taken over, with everything having Star Wars logo on it, maybe it's too much. Maybe the brand has been diluted and it's gone down a couple levels. It's not the gold standard anymore. Maybe Marvel's gone up and Star Wars has gone down because of Disney.
I've actually enjoyed when Disney first took over because you could find Star Wars everything. Now it's getting a little bit overwhelming, but I'm still enjoying it. It's not like and this is something totally different than the figures. You're like, okay, when you go to buy a spatula, oh, I can get a Star Wars spatula. It's to that point with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to pay $5 more for the Star Wars spatula, I'll buy the Star Wars spatula. But if it's $5 more, I'm buying the normal one.
Yeah.
And I think that's at the level we're at right now with Star Wars, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because I don't think you can have too much of it, but it is getting to the point where it is getting ridiculous.
You got complete saturation, and it's exhausting. And do you want to overpay for Star Wars everything?
Right.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
It's back to that whole where you got to pick and choose what you're going to spend your money on.
Yeah.
And well, for example, we were at Hallmark yesterday, and I forgot to talk about spending money at Hallmark, but they had a boba. Everything's on sale. They're having their 70% off sale, so we went and picked up a bunch of oddball stuff that was left over. But they had a Wampa frame, and they want $30 for it. And my wife's, I'm like, I'm not spending $30 on the frame. She's like, you're not willing to. You'll spend $30 on something else, just not the frame. That type of thing. So it's where you want to spend your money.
Yeah.
But then they gave me a 30% off coupon for February, so I'll go back and buy it at 30% off. It is. It's oversaturation, I think. But you have like the stuff like Hallmark that is, they have freaking barbecue tongs that are lightsabers now, which it's kind of cool. But then again, you're as a Star Wars collector, you do at Christmas time. But then you'll have like Burger King cup, not the burger. I'm looking at the 90s Burger King cups, not the 80s Burger King cups, because Jason's got a bunch of them. The cup toppers that you'll get, or you get like the oddball stuff. You don't get the stuff you want. Like if somebody gave me a set of lightsaber barbecue tongs, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling, but
yeah. Zach DiStefano said he's still collecting Power of the Force, the line that started it all for him as a kid. That's what got him into Star Wars. He gave up on modern stuff unless it's Hot Toys. Always feels like modern stuff will have gaps in his collection. So that's what the people said.
Well, that's on Star. I've gotten.
I wish we had a couple people chime in and say, "No, I'm still in."
Yeah,
to be more balanced, because it was all negative.
Right, and it's all what we've been talking about for the last 6 months, where it's just getting too repetitive and the money's getting too high.
Yeah.
And there again, Hasbro, if you listen to this, if we're willing to pay for it, at least me, I'm willing to pay $40 or $50 for a figure, but make it worth the $40 or $50. And I think that's
multiple accessories is what you mean.
Right, multiple accessories, multiple paint apps, multiple a lot of articulation. And I think the market's there, but I think Hasbro, like again, is sort of in a black hole in a no man's land where they're trying to cut costs where they don't need to be cutting costs. They need to just say, F it, let's go for it. Yeah. I did have some of like just Shane Kelly messaged me, and this is totally going the other opposite direction. He said that he said he's met some of the most wonderful and generous people in the hobby. He loves Star Wars, always have, always will. However, the downside and the reason he finds no more enjoyment is everybody jockeying to be quote unquote king of the hobby. There's no more. There's more clicks here now than in school, and you go into the school you go into, and it sucked the fun out of him. And he said that being said, it's just not fun for him anymore. And that's a totally other opposite end of the spectrum to what we've been talking about pricing.
Yeah.
It does when you do get clicks and you do get people jockeying for being king of the hobby, and then you've got people who should be quote unquote king of the hobby. Not that there should be a king of the hobby, but the good people good people always rise to the top, and there's good people that are not jockeying for that position, that are just sitting back there and being good people, and the people are rallying behind those versus the people who are trying to get it through likes and Facebook and doing stuff quote unquote doing stuff for the hobby.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at some of the way our show performs. Sometimes it seems like the more negative shows, a show like this, might perform better than a show where we're being positive and stuff like that. I think people like conflict.
Right.
And so when they see stuff like that, they're like, let's just eat some popcorn and pay attention to what's going on over there.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no such thing as a king of the hobby.
Right.
It's just narcissist thinking I need to do something, I need to be important,
right?
I am important, kind of thing. So I don't know.
Right, and you have the people that need to be important that are just sitting back watching the world. Not watching the world burn's the wrong term, but they're just sitting back watching things happen, and they're like, "We'll be fine. You know, we'll let these 2 or 3 people fight it out, and then the people who really know what's going on will rally together, and you know, we'll still be here when it goes to crap."
Yeah, it's disappointing to see that kind of stuff happening, and there's something going on in the Masters of the Universe world right now.
Yeah,
where you say like you don't know. Oh, really? Tell me more. Well, because you were in the text chain, you know about this.
Well, I was also driving or something. What was I doing?
There's a guy who used to work on the line saying that Masters of the Universe is going to end in April. Like the last wave is coming out in April. And then you've got other people in the hobby, that niche of the hobby, that section of the hobby, saying, no, it's not. It's going to continue. And so to see these people go back and forth in all these different videos, you know, clicking, I didn't want to talk about this, but I'm gonna.
Right.
Of course, because you're going to get click and ad revenue.
Right.
And they're going back and forth, and it's just like I'm just eating popcorn. Like, this feels like I'm back on the playground listening to 2 kids argue about some thing about toys. It's just, it's kind of funny to me, but it is sad.
Yeah, it is.
It is a niche.
And I have seen those
click, I should say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But like those Masters of the Universe figures, I don't want to keep harking on this crap, but they're $25-$30, and I looked at it and I went, wow. And if I didn't want to, if I'm really holding back on collecting other lines right now, I'd have bought all that they had, because those are some awesome looking figures. Yeah. And I think they kind of are picking what I've seen from Mythic Legions. I think they're picking, you know, borrowing stuff from that line, what's making that line successful, and bringing it to the Masters of the Universe, because that Revelation or whatever the new version of Masters of the Universe that is like $25-$30, those are incredible looking figures. And for somebody that's wanted to get back into Masters of the Universe, kind of dipping my toe, I'd rather do that line than do the retro, you know, the vintage stuff, because those figures look incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, there's hardly any innovation. I don't know what more they can do with Star Wars as far as Hasbro. Like, do they push it to look like that kind of stuff? The Masterverse with the multiple, like 7-8 inch tall figures and more articulation and stuff like that. I don't think that would be successful or necessary for Star Wars.
It doesn't need to be necessary. They can keep. They've got the blueprint. They just need to make their blueprint better.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is. You know,
but it seems to be an issue that people are leaving the hobby because of cost, because of repacks, because of they say quality. I don't know if quality, like, I can't complain about quality. I'm not that upset. Like, I have these 2 Stormtroopers here. Right. One is a new version and one is the original release in the black box. And it seems like the newer version, the Rogue One Stormtrooper, is a lot better and more stable than the old original 2013 release of the Black Series Stormtrooper. So it seems to me that quality has increased and they've made changes, but I don't know. Yeah. That's just one example.
I don't know. I'm at a loss of words. I don't know what. Yeah, I keep repeating myself, so there's no need to say it again.
So if you have any other thoughts about this, let us know. Write us in. If you have something positive to counterpoint it, let us know. Send it in, because it seems like the theme is cost is getting too high. It's unsustainable. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about with Rise of Skywalker and the sequel trilogy, there's nothing for those kids. Right. And so in 10 years, they're not going to be fans of Star Wars because they don't have anything that's brought them to that 10 years. And they'll just move on to the next thing. So there is an end point, I think, at some point for the hobby. Right. That's been built in. I don't know when that is. I don't know if it's in the next 20 years when the older generation starts to die down. Who knows? The pool will just dry up. There won't be that many collectors, and it's not going to be worth the company's time to engineer all these figures. They're just going to abandon it. This is the end. I don't know. Yeah,
and I mean, like we've kind of come at it from what's being produced now, but I mean, there's a whole nother layer to this onion, as far as, you know, like, we've already kind of gripped on it as age, you know, people get older, but, you know, there's still, you know, the community as a whole and a hobby as a whole is a totally different onion than what's being produced.
Yeah. And maybe in 2024 Hasbro does something where they have like all A-list figures, everyone's happy with it, and it turns the hobby around. So maybe things will change and it might continue on for 30 years. Who's to say? It's just
right.
There's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be positive towards the end here. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Thank you for listening to Smuggler's Galaxy Podcast. If you could, please leave a like and a 5-star review of the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, if it's allowed. It really helps us out and points people to our show. Follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Send us an email or message us. We'd love feedback. We'd love to make you part of the show. Our email address is smugglersgalaxy@gmail.com. Thank you to Alfonso Riviera for the Smuggler's Galaxy logo. You can find him at Rock the Force Podcast. And thank you to Levi Waterhouse for the music. Hasbro, re-release VC66. # vote with your wallet. Pass on what you've learned. Be a positive force in the collecting community. This is the way.
This is the way.
Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Thank you for listening to Smuggler's Galaxy Podcast. If you could, please leave a like and a 5-star review of the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, if it's allowed. It really helps us out and points people to our show. Follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Send us an email or message us. We'd love feedback. We'd love to make you part of the show. Our email address is smugglersgalaxy@gmail.com. Thank you to Alfonso Riviera for the Smuggler's Galaxy logo. You can find him at Rock the Force Podcast. And thank you to Levi Waterhouse for the music. Hasbro, re-release VC66. # vote with your wallet. Pass on what you've learned. Be a positive force in the collecting community. This is the way.
This is the way.